morning. My name is Zeender. I'm the development director here at Shining Mountain. I'm also a mom of a second grader and a fifth grader, and I am so happy that you're here. We are so blessed to have you here today for our Grandparents and Special Friends Day, and we're going to have a really exciting morning. Did you have fun in the classrooms? Yes. Was it nice to see those children? I think a lot of parents have our kids here because we wish we could have been here when we were kids. So we're going to have a really exciting morning for you. We're going to have some, Jamie York, our high school math teacher, is going to come talk to you a little bit about Waldorf education. Our second graders are going to come in with their bright smiles and sing for you. We're going to have our high school a cappella group come in and sing a beautiful song. And our high school strings group is going to come in and perform. We're also going to have the opportunity to talk with some of our high school seniors. I'm really hoping it'll be very interactive, and they're going to talk a little bit about their experience here at Shining Mountain and really have the opportunity for you to ask them questions because they have so much poise and so much to share with us. And then we are going to actually do some movement art here, Eurythmy, as we get ready for lunch. We're going to do that outside with one of our Eurythmy teachers. And then we're going to have a very special blessing on this room. If you see here, the Mary B. Winston atrium, we're going to be blessing this room today. Mary B. Winston was a grandmother here at Shining Mountain. So we're really happy that you'll be here to bless this special place. And then we're going to have lunch. So right now I'd like to introduce my boss, our school director, Sue Levine. And thank you again.
Thank you so much, Jane. And what a lovely start to a wonderful day. And thank you so much, you and Mary, for all the work you've put into this event. I hope you are having a wonderful time. I am Sue Levine. I'm the school director. I've had 3 children go K-12 here. My youngest is a senior, and as it turns out, you'll be hearing from her later today. And my other 2 are in college now, and I'll tell you more about them later. But I want to extend a very, very warm welcome to you, and just my great assurance to you as a parent and a person who's been around this school for 18 years, you are in the right place. Your children are in great, loving hands with our faculty. They're fantastic, fantastic people, and we're just thrilled that you're here. There's a saying that education should be the lighting of a fire and not the filling of a bucket. And that's what we do here is we light fires. And we let our children have their childhood. The latest brain research tells us that, imaginative play is the very, very best way to help children develop their abilities and to learn how to interact with their friends and their comrades, and that's what we offer them. Our kindergarten is a play kindergarten. And then when we begin academic work, the arts are integrated thoroughly throughout every aspect of it. There is art, there is music, there is movement in every single day. And you'll never have to worry about the elimination of the 5th grade music program here. We start them in 3rd, and we're never going to change that. The arts give the children the opportunity to take what they've learned, then they've taken in, and express it in all different possible pathways in their body and with great joy, so that they remember it far, far better. Our kids, as they go through the grades, they have their loving teacher that stays with them. We have one cycle from 1st grade through 5th grade, and then they change teachers in 6th grade, and that teacher will see them through the 8th grade. So their teachers know them very, very well. It's easy to come back to school every year because you know you're going to see your friends, you're going to have that teacher that you love. For those of you familiar with other systems, we don't do grades in the lower school, we do portfolio review. And so there's a very thorough packet that comes from all of the teachers that the teachers know your children, they can speak exactly to their strengths and their developing abilities. So it's every parent out there can agree that we look forward to getting those reports at the end of the year and just seeing what the progress is that the kids have made. I think one of the unique aspects of Waldorf education is that we do most of our decision-making as a community, and we try to take into account all the viewpoints of our community as we come to our decisions. And I know that you've seen probably a tour of our land, and you'll hear more later about our dreams for building a new high school and other subject teacher buildings. So, we're in that process now of getting our community input and understanding what our needs are and what what might be useful to all in the community to take it into account. And I think that develops a skill in not just the children, but also the adults in this community that allow us to reach out into the greater community also and work with people whose viewpoints are different from our own to come to a mutually agreeable solution. And I think we can all agree we can use more of that in our world here today. So we're building for the future there as well. I think that the questions that grandparents had, and the grandparents of my children had as well, that I'd love to address for you today, because we are a very arty school, and we have, our curriculum is a little bit differently organized. We cover the same subjects, but in a little bit different order, because we are trying to reach the optimum stage of child development for each of the things that we're introducing. Our reading is a little bit delayed in order to give kids more chance to play, interact with their colleagues, and really develop the neural pathways they need for true understanding when they read. So one of the questions is, are they going to learn to read? It's in about second grade in our curriculum. My son, we came to this school in part because my son was not ready at all to read or write in kindergarten, and I could just see difficulties ahead. And he taught himself to read over Christmas break, second grade, and has always known himself to be a voracious reader. And he is about to graduate from CU with 2 degrees, one in film production and one in history, both in honors courses. And so, I don't think he would have been a history major if we had been struggling with reading from the very beginning. And another question is, will they go to college, and will they be able to keep their own in science as well as in the arts, since we are a very heavy school? And the answer is absolutely yes. Recent graduates from our school are studying engineering at Princeton, physics at Cornell, English and writing at Oberlin, music at NYU, Bard College and Beloit College are other places that our graduates are currently. Plenty of folks at CU, and they're coast to coast following their dreams. So our kids are definitely getting into their dream school. And Waldorf students, I must say, really stand out in the application process. We have many opportunities for them to shine and to be creating a portfolio in a way that is noticed. Our seniors will be doing projects at the end of this month that they've worked on all summer. The one I'm at home most familiar with is on interplanetary travel and how to keep people healthy on a possible trip to Mars, for example. This has allowed my daughter to work with mentors at CU and gain more insight into the programs that they have there and other places, as well as building a bridge for the application process. So we have some very unique opportunities for our high school students. The question that really struck me in my journey through is, what are they like in middle school? Because middle school can be pretty tough. Sometimes kids lose touch with their parents during that time, and they find the path difficult. Here, from my own experience and from watching my children's friends and other students, it's smooth. They know their class, they know their teacher, and yes, they're getting a new teacher in 6th grade, but they've had a chance to get to know that teacher in other circumstances, and so it's a pretty seamless move into the middle school. Our middle schoolers are kids that can come up to you, look you in the eye, shake your hand and smile, and have a conversation with you about things you're interested in. And I just think that that's one of the strongest testaments to what we do here in our Waldorf education. So with that, I will turn this back to Jane and say welcome. I'm so thrilled. I hope to get to meet all of you. If not today, maybe tomorrow. We have Michaelmas, our Michaelmas pageant. I hope you can all stay for that. And I've also been told that all grandparents have free admission to the volleyball games tonight. There are games at 4 and 5 for the middle school and 6 and 7 for the high school. So we hope to see you there tonight as well. So thank you so much.
Well, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Jamie York, who is in our high school. He's our math teacher, and I just want to tell you a little bit about Jamie before he talks. Jamie grew up in Connecticut and Maine. After studying computer science, teaching at a boarding school, running a tennis camp, traveling, and serving as a Peace Corps volunteer in Nepal, he settled in Boulder in 1993, and shortly thereafter started teaching middle school and high school math at Shining Mountain. He has been here ever since, except for a brief hiatus at a Waldorf school in Holland. Jamie is also the author of a series of books entitled Making Math Meaningful. Jamie consults at Waldorf schools, teaches math workshops across North America, and this summer he serves on the faculty at the Center for Anthroposophy in Wilton, New Hampshire, as part of their Waldorf High School teacher education program. In his spare time, he most loves camping, skiing, and studying math, history, and philosophy. Jamie and his wife Karen have 2 children, Ari and Ashanti. Please welcome Jamie York.
So I'll start out with a really bad math joke. There are 3 types of people in the world: those who can count and those who can't. I apologize if you haven't found it funny yet, but anyway. I'd first like to acknowledge that I'm here largely today in a Waldorf school because to some degree I had an immediate realization when I first walked onto this campus that there was something that was missing in my education. So I also want to add here, because I know sometimes when we talk about Waldorf education, when I do, I think many of us, we live in a world that can be very critical, and I am generally a critical person. I look out and see what we can do better, perhaps, and I want to acknowledge that whatever I say here in the next 15 minutes or so, I don't at all mean to say that there aren't other great teachers out there outside of the Waldorf movement. There are. And the state of education, the crisis of what I would call the crisis in our education system today really isn't to blame on the many wonderful teachers that are out there in our public systems and our other schools, etc. So I did want to acknowledge that, first of all. But I also wanted to acknowledge that our state of education is in a crisis today. I don't think that's a radical statement. I think many people that are currently working in our public schools would say that, and many parents across the country in all sorts of schools would also acknowledge that. But we're coming upon now close to 100 years from the founding of the first Waldorf school. And this is one of the things that certainly makes Waldorf education, I would say, very unique, and something that I acknowledged and recognized immediately. And that is, when I was trying to figure out what did I really want to do with my life, I was in my late 20s, and I had already been a teacher before. I'd just come back from Nepal as a Peace Corps volunteer. And oftentimes people in that stage of life, and maybe some people could have experienced that as well in their late 20s or so, are really wondering, what do I really want to do? And I really saw when I walked onto this campus the first time, this is what I've been looking for, because here's an education that really has a genuine philosophy behind it. And that's one of the things that is, I think, quite, not that there aren't other educational systems without a philosophy behind it, but it's certainly something that makes Waldorf education very powerful. We have a person, Rudolf Steiner, who came up with so many amazing, wonderful ideas about what education could actually be. And so for me, I recognized that, and I thought, yes, here it is, a philosophy that to me was powerful, meaningful. I want to be a part of that. And so I'd like to share some of this with you today. I'd also like to acknowledge that I was, I think, successful in the education that I had growing up in Connecticut, going to public school. I eventually went to engineering school, majored in computer science at a place called Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Your first challenge at such a place is to spell the name of the school, which was actually quite a challenge for anybody. And I was a product of the educational system at that time, which honestly I don't think is very different today. If anything, I would say over the last, I don't even want to think about how long ago it was that I even graduated from college. It was a while ago. And I think, as I look back at it, I say one of the trends that's really happened since then is there's even more pressure. I don't know if you talk to your grandchildren about these sort of things, especially if they're in middle school, high school, especially outside, I would say, of the Waldorf movement. What we're seeing are kids that are experiencing high levels of stress at a younger age. In terms of mathematics, we're teaching mathematical concepts to students at a younger and younger age, which before, I use the example of algebra, which used to really be the domain of a child in ninth grade or so, really getting Algebra 1 for the first time. And now what we're seeing are students in fourth or fifth grade really learning material that, such as algebra, that they're not quite ready for. And so this is a trend that I think is concerning. More testing, more stress. It's a race. I mean, education has really become a race. And so I would like to first say, no, I disagree. I think as Waldorf educators, we disagree. Education is not a race. It is something else. In Waldorf education, what we're really striving to do is to help to develop children into well-rounded human beings. It's a very different thing. Now, the concerns, I could imagine, because it wasn't all that long ago before I came to Waldorf education, and many of these ideas were very new to me, the concern could easily be, well, wait a minute. If we're not getting them ahead younger, if they're not learning to read until second grade for real, if they're not really starting algebra, well, we actually do start in seventh grade, but real algebra 1's in ninth grade, and wow, are they behind? That can be the concern. I can understand that. But what I find really is if we're really preparing our students in a real way for college, truly preparing them in a real way, then they can walk out of the door in 12th grade and they're truly prepared for anything. They're flexible, they're adaptable, they have what I didn't have, what had been completely drained out of me, not by my teachers, but by the system, was enthusiasm for learning. I didn't even know it. If somebody had asked me, do you have enthusiasm for learning, I probably would have responded, what do you mean? I had become very good at playing the game, at playing the system. I became extraordinary at being a test taker. Did I have enthusiasm for learning? No. When did I recognize that? When I came here. And I suddenly realized, and I started to rekindle that enthusiasm for learning as I was in the classroom trying to bring topics and things that had been neglected, that had been thrown out of our mainstream curriculum a long time ago. Enthusiasm for learning. I would venture to say that that is something that any school, not just a Waldorf school, should really strive to do. We want our 12th graders to walk out the door being enthusiastic about learning. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't have really strong skills. They should. Absolutely they should. But they need to be enthusiastic about learning. And I also say they need to be good thinkers. In terms of mathematics, what do we mean by being a good thinker? I venture to say there's a difference between problem solving and solving problems. We're hearing this now from industry. We're hearing this now from people in academia at university. They're saying, hey, America, look what we're doing. We're graduating people from our high schools that can't think. They can't problem solve. They can't think out of the box. People that go into people that as engineers that go out into work into industry and they can't think anymore. Why? Because they've been fed, in my opinion, a lot of very superficial information, and they've been trained how to solve problems that they've seen time and time again. So they could solve, for instance, a problem that appears in a calculus problem if it's exactly like another one that they've been shown how to do. And so I just want to say right now, yes, enthusiasm for learning. Number 2 is to really think. Think how? Think creatively, to think independently, to be able to problem solve. That's the kind of thinking we're really needing now. And then the other thing is, obviously, I would say, is we need to have good study skills. These are the things that really mean to be prepared for high school. Prepared for college, and actually prepared for all the way down the line, if we can have that real enthusiasm. I wanted to read here our mission statement for our high school. And I know many of you are grandparents of children that are in the lower grades, but this gives you a picture of where things are going. And this is something that the high school faculty read every week together. We recite this together before we start our meeting every week, just to remind ourselves of these ideals. Shining Mountain Waldorf High School guides adolescents on a journey of discovery to find their place in the world. We educate individuals to realize capacities of lively, independent thinking, artistically cultivated feeling, and moral courage for responsible action. We strive with adolescents to develop this full measure of human potential that allows for the recognition of one's life work and service to humanity. So in that, as I read that, what I think every time that I hear this are really three different aspects. What we are trying to do as Waldorf educators is we want these students of ours coming out of high school that can really think for themselves, think creatively, think independently, as I said before, but also, if you listened into that, that they really care about the world. They have a passion. They have a passion about the world, and they're motivated and passionate about what they do. Isn't this what we want? And these are the things, if we hear this in Waldorf education, a lot what we talk about is the developing of the thinking, feeling, and willing. This meaning to develop their thinking, we all know about this, but to develop their feelings toward the world, their caring towards the world, and their involvement in the world. And to develop people that can really go out and do something. These are the things that we're really striving towards. The world, everyone would agree, has changed dramatically. But one thing that hasn't changed, which is interesting, we still want our children as parents, don't we? We want our children to have happy childhoods, and we want them to go out into the world and find something meaningful. And I would say one of the biggest challenges that our children face in a Waldorf school, and this is interesting, what does it mean to go out in the world and find something meaningful? Well, for some of our graduates, they come up against some real challenge in that because they have actually developed into such well-rounded individuals, it's a difficult decision to make. I think of one student that graduated a few years ago who was undoubtedly a very gifted student, an incredible violinist, who was very philosophical, an amazing writer, and he was amazing in everything, all the subjects. And he was trying to choose between, do I want to go into chemistry, do I want to go into philosophy, or do I want to go to music school? He ended up deciding that he actually has gone down a route, and he's now at MIT getting his PhD in chemistry. But those are the kind of difficult decisions I think we want our children to make. So when we have students, that all of them in third grade are starting music, that every single student is actually in a play, dramatic play almost every year, that has tremendous educational value. It has tremendous value in their development. So if we look at, I think one of the most important things that's needed today is good communication. People to be able to get up, as I'm speaking today, public speaking, I never could have imagined doing that when I was in high school. We have our own students every year that stand up in front of a much larger crowd than this, and they present their senior projects. And public speaking is a big part of that. Our students on a regular basis get up and speak in public. And that's really a wonderful thing. And that starts with drama, I would say. We value art, we value music, we value drama, we value English, we value world languages, we value science, and we value math. All of this to us is equally important. And we very strongly believe that every student should be able to walk out of here at the end of 12th grade to pursue whatever their destiny is, whatever their passion is, and they should be prepared for that. And honestly, I have a daughter in 11th grade and a son in 8th, and I'm just thrilled, and I know that my children are going to be well prepared for whatever they need to do. Oh, I wanted to end actually with a story, a very short one. I was tutoring before I came here, so before I actually knew about Waldorf education, I was tutoring a girl whose father was the founder and owner of a fairly large software company here in Boulder. And I was speaking with him one day afterwards, and the conversation turned to this whole idea of where I asked him a question, and I said, when you hire a new person, when you hire a new employee, somebody that you really want to do good for your company, what do you look for in them? And he said, well, that depends. If I'm really just trying to hire another programmer, I can find them quite easily. That's not a problem. But if I want to hire somebody who's really going to make a difference for my company and really make it so that I can compete in this world market today, he says, yeah, I need somebody who really knows computers well. That's my business, obviously. But I'm looking for someone who's an artist. And that idea still stuck with me. And when I asked him what he meant, he said, really, an artist. I want to see somewhere on their resume that they have developed some artistic ability. And what he meant was he's looking for someone who can think creatively And he really saw that correlation. And I think we see that in Waldorf education. I think some of the best mathematicians, some of the best thinkers are people who had that very strong artistic background as well. So that then when they get into high school and college, they can really blossom in a way that otherwise is quite challenging. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Well, we have a very special treat. Our second grade class is going to come in and do a little song and I think play on their flutes. So why don't we welcome them? They're being led by Bertrand Johansson, who's the second grade teacher. Kathleen Starr is our music director here at Shining Mountain, and she's setting up our music stands. We're going to be very fortunate to hear some of our high school students do a little strings performance, and I'll let Kathleen introduce herself in the songs when she's ready.
So these are some of our high school orchestra students. I'm Kathleen Starr, and I'm the music director here. And actually, the students were going to introduce the pieces right before they play them. So they will do it with a nice big voice so you can hear what they are.
So our first piece is A Shogun Farewell by Jay Unger.
next performance will be from our high school a cappella group, led by Marcus Turner, our choir director.
Hi, welcome. Thank you. My name is Marcus Turner. I am the choir director in the high school and the middle school, and also the band director in the middle school. And this is our a cappella group here at the school.
I could sing like that. Our next offering to you all is to have the opportunity to meet some of our high school seniors. We have 4 high school seniors here who are here to answer your questions and share their experiences with you. And come on in.
Hi, my name is Jason Ellinwood, and I've been at Shining Mountain for 14 years. Yeah, it's been a while. There are a lot of things I love and appreciate about Waldorf education, but looking back, there are 2 things that really come to mind. The first is the incredibly close relationships that you develop with your teachers throughout the years, starting in the lower school and continuing into the high school. By the time I reached high school, I already had incredibly close relationships with many of my teachers, some of whom had taught me for as long as I can remember. And they continue to support me in everything I do, and I look forward to continuing these relationships after high school. The second thing that I really, really appreciate about Waldorf education, and I think it's helped develop me into who I am today, is the incredibly broad and rich curriculum that we have here. From a very, very early age, starting in kindergarten and first grade, I was immersed in the worlds of music, fine arts, theater, drama, productions, plays, athletics, as well as more traditional studies like math, writing, and the sciences. So those 2 things, the close relationships with the teachers and the broadness and richness of the education is what I really appreciate about this school.
My name is Taylor Saenz. This is my 2nd year here at Shining Mountain. Originally, I'm from Miami, Florida, and I went to Waldorf school there throughout middle school. And once I started high school, they don't provide one there, which was a disappointment for me. So I decided I would just go into a traditional private school. And it was nice, and I did enjoy my time there, but it was not what I had wanted out of my education. It's not what I had gained from Waldorf through my middle school years. So during my 10th grade year, I had decided that for my last 2 years of high school, I would leave my family, come all the way over here to Colorado by myself so I could have my last 2 years of high school at a Waldorf school. And it was the best choice of my life so far. So it means that much that I would come into a completely new environment. I mean, Boulder and Miami are two completely different cities. So I have learned to be independent, have gained all the wonderful gifts that I have always wanted from Waldorf back into my life. And I think that without that, I really wouldn't be the person I am, and I feel a lot more well-rounded because of that. So that's why Waldorf is really special to me, especially Shining Mountain.
Hello, I'm Elliot. I've gone here for 13 years, so 1 year of kindergarten. And I want to talk about yesterday's math class. And I'll talk about the solos too afterwards. But oddly, yesterday's math class was probably the most enjoyable class I've had all week. And it's a small class. There's, I think, 9 of us in it. And although it's the more challenging of the math classes offered, it's not full of engineers-to-be or scientists. It's musicians and artists, and we all do everything. So we were working on this problem, and it was we're in a Trig 4 block, and I don't think the teacher made one statement throughout the whole class, but he stood up at the board and asked us just very simple questions, which we answered. And before we even knew it, we had proved this whole this equality that we were trying to prove. He didn't tell us a thing. He just showed us that we could figure it out. It was a thoroughly enjoyable math class, which feels weird to say. Although I'm used to them, it happens all the time. And I walked out of that class and I thought back and it's like, wait, that was really fun. And it happens. It's not just math class. All the teachers here are so enthusiastic about what they teach. They could go on and on about their subject, and it wouldn't get old. Also, the solos. We were asked to talk about them. Every senior class, towards the beginning of the year, 2 or 3 weeks into the year, we pack up our bags and head up. We headed to a place near Creststone, I think. Grand Junction, sorry. It's a week-long trip, and we're there for about 3 days preparing, and then when it comes time, we pack up our bags and we hike off about a mile and find our campsite, and we just kind of sit down there with our water, and fasting is suggested but optional. So many of us did actually, and we just sat down there with our water and set up our tarp, and we were there for 2 days just by ourselves in the desert, or kind of highland desert country. And it's hard to say what the experience was like because nobody's experience was the same. But it's powerful, to say the least, just to sit with yourself for 2 days. And you notice so much more about yourself, what's going through your head, and you learn a lot about yourself without really having a whole lot to pay attention to or distract you from anything. So it's a 2-day solo that every 12th grade does at the beginning of the year. And I looked forward to it since I knew about it in second grade or whatever, and it was a fulfilling experience. It's very nice. So yeah, that's all.
Hi, so I'm Sara, and I'm also what we call a lifer. I've been here for 14 years, and actually I went to 2 years of Waldorf preschool with Jason before that, so we've known each other since we were 2, essentially. But the two things that I wanted to talk about my experience with Waldorf education are, first, the arts, and then second, the community of this school. And so in a Waldorf school, not only is art a possibility, but it's a requirement. But at a certain point, for me, it switched from being a requirement, you have to take these art courses, to you get to take these art courses. We explore education through art. There's no subject that is not looked at from the perspective of art, even if it's not direct art. So take math, for instance. We've learned about Cartesian geometry, which is a very abstract form of art, or form of math, that there's a lot of concepts that you can only think. You can't quite touch them on paper and in numbers. And so we'd instead express them we'd draw parabolas that would represent the equation. We would artistically represent the math in our form of expression. So even in math, we're bringing art into learning the material. And for me, what art has done is, instead of just learning the material or being presented with facts in one direction, you learn it, you remember it. So instead of just exploring it in one medium, you look at it from 4 different mediums, and then 4 years later you look back and you still remember everything you did. I guess the different mediums of art we have done in the high school alone, we've done black and white drawing, we've done color theory, which is painting, we've done figure drawing in junior year, and then this year, senior year, we have a combined class of modern art or a flipped class, 1/4 of each, of modern art and stone carving. Then we also have electives of mosaics, of stained glass. We, of course, have music. So we have music classes, we have orchestra, I can keep listing the mediums, but it's incredible to see how many different ways you can study a subject through art but not just through art. So it's hard for me to say, but I'm so grateful that we've learned that way, that art has been such a part of how we learn here. And then the second thing that I'm most grateful for about coming to Shining Mountain is the community that I grew up in. This is where I grew up. When you have to be in a class with 21 other kids for every day of your life, 300 days a year, for 8 hours a day, you'll fight, you'll have problems, but you can't walk away from a relationship because of a disagreement. You have to come back and face it and talk your way through it. So having to grow up with such a tight-knit group of people, you're able to accept other people's perspectives on things, different opinions. If you argue about it, it makes your opinion stronger if you can work to a medium. You make better decisions because you hear all of the viewpoints and you're accepting to them because you have to be. So I think that in our society, for a lot of people, they don't experience this kind of community, and it's so important for everyone. So having it, I feel that's what lets us communicate and express ourselves in the best way we can, is the people supporting us and knowing that even if you have a difference of opinion, they're always there for you, and they always will be. So I guess that's what I have to say about Waldorf, so thank you.
The floor is open for questions for these lovely young adults. Any questions for them? Anything you want?
I have a question. I forgot your name. The second.
Taylor.
Yeah. So when you decided to move here, to go to school here, I mean, where do you live? I mean, I'm just sort of like a detail-oriented person. I'm just curious about it. You know.
A family, the Bremners, right there. They graciously opened their doors to me, and they've had 3 sons that have come through the school, so I stay with them.
Tell me about language studies.
In the 1st grade, you start learning 2 languages. You start German and Spanish at this school, and you learn through repetition, through motion. You learn the basics of the language. You hear it, so you may not know the grammar or the rules, but just hearing it and being immersed in it is essentially it's an immersion in the younger grades. And then once you get to 7th grade, you have to choose. For us, it was 7th grade. I don't know if that's always the case. You choose between German or Spanish, and then you start taking an in-depth look at one language. For me, that was German. And then in 9th grade, once you start high school, you really get into the grammar of it, and you look at what makes the language, all the verses you learned when you were younger, and all the music and all the sounds you learned from the language, what the rules are behind it. And then I personally went on an exchange to Germany because of that. So I went out and lived with a German family at a Waldorf school in Frankfurt for 4 months. And I was honestly surprised at how much German I knew coming out there and how much I could understand. Of course, there's a language barrier when you get there, but I really was prepared for being put out there, which was fantastic.
Is that typical? Does everyone do a year or a time abroad?
In my class, it was pretty typical. I think like 9 people went to various places, but it's up to the student. It's an option for pretty much everyone if they want to find an exchange and find a person to host them. That's a good point that I didn't mention, is that what's different about a Waldorf exchange when you find a person in Germany is that you go and live with her for that period of time, 4 months, and then she comes and lives with you for that period of time. So I had another sister for 8 months, which was fantastic because it's such a different perspective than what you get every day when you're living with a foreign family, but you really get to see and interact with someone exactly your own age.
How much do you guys know about computers?
We're all perfectly savvy with computers. And of course you wouldn't think so, because there is that restricted media policy in the lower school. But they're very supported in the high school, of course. We have plenty of computers in the high school for use there. People bring their laptops. And they're used at home. Papers are, of course, supposed to be typed and researched online. And it's especially in our generation, growing up with these, it's kind of second nature for everyone. I do tech support as a part-time job, and I don't have any formal training. It's just from using computers. So yeah, we're all very competent.
I'm interested in what kind of research you do for various subjects, and how much do you rely on the internet to get that?
Well, for many teachers, it's up to them. They'll assign you a project and they can say, I want you to just use the internet, or I don't want you to use the internet and I want you to rely on your local public library. But one example, probably the biggest research project we've done to date, is a research paper in 10th grade that had to be between 8 and 12 pages long on a subject of your choice. Mine turned out to be 14, but the teacher let it slide. The way this works is you work with your teacher over a period of a month or two, And you pick a subject, and then the whole focus of this course is to really go in depth into the research process. And for this paper, you're required to have an internet source, multiple internet sources, multiple book sources, published books that you get from your library, periodicals, newspapers, magazines, professional journals, and at least one interview with an expert on your field of study. So you really get the entire research field. You go out, you're studying books, you're reading them, you're citing them, and you have to create around a 10-page paper, APA cited, with all your research information from multiple different sources.
You just said all the right words.
I did an analysis of the difference between traditional Chinese medicine and more modern Western medicine in their approaches to treating pain in patients.
I asked the question, can evolution explain ethics and morals in humans?
I did mine on, the title of it was Accutane, Menace or Miracle. And Accutane is an acne medication that can, over the course of a 5-month period, eliminate acne. But it's a retinoid, so I was looking at the pros and cons of it and whether or not we're making ourselves lab rats to it, because the research is, less than 100 years old, so we don't know what, a couple generations down the line, what the effects on us will be, so.
Where are you going to college?
That is the question. I'm looking at a large variety of schools, partially for the reason that I'm not exactly sure what I want to do, so I want to have my options open. My list right now, my top two are probably Duke and Davidson in North Carolina. Davidson's a smaller liberal arts-based school. After that, I'm looking at Harvard and Yale. I'm looking at Pomona in California. I'm looking at Occidental in California. I'm looking at University of Massachusetts Amherst. And I'm looking at a couple schools in Colorado, Denver University, Colorado College, and maybe one of the local public universities, just for backup.
My top schools are all in Florida, just to go back home. I've had a nice break from there. So my top school is the University of Miami, and then Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida. There's several other ones like University of Florida, Florida International. Also, just for fun, I'm going to apply to Allegheny and Sarah Lawrence. So those are my schools.
William and Mary is looking like a good match for me. I'm going to visit there soon. Cooper Union in New York City is a tiny little school of 1,000 kids. Specializes in architecture, arts, and engineering, 3 interests of mine. Where else? American University. University of Chicago would be my reach school. And University of Puget Sound in Washington.
It's different on a daily basis, but my current top choices would probably be Tufts University or Cornell University. I'm also looking at McAllister in the Twin Cities, right around there. CU Boulder is also actually up there towards the top of the list, surprisingly. Never thought I'd stay in state, but it's looking better and better. UC Berkeley, possibly Skidmore, Brandeis, and that's all I can remember right now. I think that's about it, though. Maybe one more.
Are most of your class going to college?
I think 100%.
I think 100%. I don't know of anyone that's thinking of not, so.
Thank you so much. Aren't they amazing? We're going to do a shift here, try to give you a little flavor of what our school is about and how much we love it and how important we feel this education is. And so what I'm going to talk very briefly now is to share our dreams with you. our dreams for the future for our school and where our school has been over the almost past 30 years. And at that point, after I speak briefly on that, we are going to have, we're going to go outside and move a little bit because our children move here, and movement is an important part of our curriculum, and we all need to move, take a break, have a little movement, and get ready for lunch. So I really want to just share these dreams with you with the hope that some of these dreams might become your dreams as well. In 1983, Shining Mountain welcomed 80 students in preschool through 4th grade in the basement of a church and former daycare center. Within 3 years, Shining Mountain purchased and began developing the main school campus that is home to our lower and middle school. In 1991, we purchased the high school, and we welcomed our first 9th grade class. Shining Mountain distinguished itself as the fastest growing kindergarten through grade 12 Waldorf school in North America. I like to think we are the best Waldorf school in North America. In 1995, we added 2 modular buildings, one to house the high school science lab and another to provide classrooms for chorus and eurythmy. In 1996, we celebrated the graduation of our first 12th grade class with 24 students. In 1998, we completed the construction of this festival hall in which you're sitting now. This beautiful structure doubles as a performing arts space and as a gymnasium for competitive sports and physical education classes. In 2008, we bought a house and a lot on Locust Street, as well as the Armour Steelyard property, this property across the street here. We now consist of 12 acres divided into 6 different parcels. Just this month, we opened our 3rd kindergarten classroom, Lark Song, which has been in our strategic plan for 7 years and will help us continue to grow into the grades. Our high school is almost 80 students strong, and our high school graduates are admitted almost everywhere they apply to college. This past spring, our campus planning task force was launched with what I like to call a dream team of parents, past and present, and all professionals in their fields. We have urban planners, green builders, architects, business people, and financial experts who are working hard to realize our dream for the next 25 years. Just this week, they have put out a request for proposal for an owner's rep to help guide Shining Mountain in our pre-planning and pre-application process with the City of Boulder. It's not exciting or glamorous, but it's necessary work as we decide how we want to move forward and execute our long-term strategic plan for growth. Some of our dreams include a new high school, a performing arts center, a library, a cafeteria, and a biodynamic gardening program. We hope that as these plans unfold, you'll let us share them with you, and that these dreams that we have for our children will also become dreams you can have for your own grandchildren and their children after them. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Andrew Meyer, who is on our endowment committee and a very supportive parent at Shining Mountain. He's going to speak very briefly, and then we're going to get up and take a break.
Good morning. Welcome. I'm Andrew Meyer. I'm a parent here at Shining Mountain, and I'm also on the endowment committee. And I'm here to tell you about a very exciting development here, that is the formation of an endowment. But before I do that, I'd like to tell you my story. I hope that I don't bore you too much, but I'll tell you a little bit about my story. So, about 6.5 years ago, my wife and I and our 2 children moved here from Arizona, where I was a very busy cardiologist, practicing all the time and spending very little time with my family. And we made a decision at that time to refocus on our family, and we moved, the 4 of us moved here to have a new life and just refocus on the family. And it's been a very successful time. We now have 4 children. And we found this community to be very welcoming, very supportive, and very nurturing. And we've had this wonderful, wonderful experience here. And it's a very common story. Lots of people have moved here from New York, California, New Jersey, Virginia, Florida, Montana, Wyoming. All these people come here, and they come here to get their children enrolled in a Waldorf school, and their whole lives are transformed from this beautiful community that's here. And it's just so incredibly supportive and supporting and nurturing. It's beautiful. So presently, I have a daughter that's in 6th grade. She's in the class of 2018. I have a son who's in 2nd grade. He's in the class of 2022. I have another son who's going to be in the class of 2026. And I have a daughter over there who's going to be in the class of 2029. So I'm in it for the long run. I have a long-term interest in the health of the school and the financial health of the school. And to make this school healthier, an endowment is formed, and this is for the long-term planning of the school. In an endowment, the interest will be used of the endowment to more fully support the teachers here. It will allow students scholarships that could not otherwise afford to come to this beautiful community. It would allow this community to grow. Now, in my education, I benefited from being at schools that had active endowments, and I saw how an endowment can help everybody in the school. And that is what our goal with the endowment is. So far, from the generosity of some past parents, from a present grandparent, and from other present parents, we have an endowment, and we have an endowment committee. And if you have any questions, suggestions, comments, we'd love to hear about it. You can talk to Jane, and she can direct you to where you need to talk, who you need to talk to. She'd be happy to talk to you. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for supporting your grandkids.
What we're going to do now is I'm going to introduce you to Glenda Monash, who's our Eurythmy, on our Eurythmy faculty, and we're all going to head outside and move. And after we could take a break. What is Eurythmy? I'm going to tell you. And I like to say that, people ask me what Eurythmy is. I say, well, do you have about 10 years? And I can tell you. But I like to describe Eurythmy as a movement art. It's poetry and music in motion. And it's a tough thing to describe, but it's an integral part of our curriculum here, and we would really like you to have a little taste of it. And it's quite lovely. And what my 11-year-old son tells me, Mommy, Eurythmy makes me feel good.
Not just you're with me, but you're rhythmic in your nature. All right, let's open again. Very nice. And really bring it back. So you receive it in and give it away. A little further, stepping towards each other. Good. And open it out again. Counterclockwise direction. Isn't that right? And uprising.
So, did Eurythmy make you all feel good? How did it feel? Good? We are really honored today to be blessing this room, the Mary B. Winston Atrium. Mrs. Winston was a grandmother here at Shining Mountain, and she died suddenly in January of 2009. Her grandchildren go here today, Leo Mason, who's currently in 6th grade, and Hannah Mason in 10th grade. Mary's daughter, Kimmy Winston, is also here with us today, and she has given so much of her time and talents to Shining Mountain as a parent volunteer. Mr. Jim Winston, Mary's devoted husband of 54 years, has been a generous donor to Shining Mountain Waldorf School. And when we were discussing how we would honor his late wife, he wanted her name to grace a space that was the sacred heart of our school. This room is that space. When we were deciding upon a name, we were inspired by the word atrium, as it is not only defined as the central room of a Roman house or a room with a skylight, but also a chamber of the heart. Mrs. Winston was a native of Jacksonville, Florida, who graduated from Emma Willard School in Troy, New York, and attended Sweetbriar College in Virginia. She was a volunteer and a gardener. She was also part of a group that founded Episcopal High School of Jacksonville, a member of the Junior League, an active supporter of the Jacksonville Youth Symphony Orchestra and the YMCA. But she was perhaps best remembered as the ever-supportive wife of hard-charging Jacksonville business and civic leader James H. Winston. Mrs. Winston was a frequent visitor to Boulder and to Shining Mountain. She was always curious about this curriculum and the philosophy that took her daughter and grandchildren so far away. She enjoyed the festivals and the plays when she was here, and she appreciated hearing about the interesting things her grandchildren were doing. She's dearly missed by her husband, her children, and her grandchildren. When I come into this room, I like to think of Mrs. Winston's love of her grandchildren surrounding not only them, but all the children here at our school, and that her spirit is a living presence among us. The love of grandparents for their grandchildren is so powerful, and we are blessed that you are here with us to name this room the Mary B. Winston Atrium. Mrs. Winston's daughter, Kimmy, requested that I read this quote from Wolfgang von Goethe, as she felt it reflected how her mother lived a life of meaning each and every day. I have come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. I possess tremendous power to make life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis is escalated or de-escalated, and a person is humanized or dehumanized. If we treat people as they are, we make them worse. If we treat people as they ought to be, we help them become what they are capable of becoming. I did not have the privilege of knowing Mrs. Winston, but I have been honored to have spent some time with her husband, Jim, who cares deeply for his daughter, Kimmy, and his 2 grandchildren. Mr. Winston could not be here with us today as he had a prior business commitment, but we're recording this for him and want to thank him for his generosity of spirit for allowing Shining Mountain Waldorf School to have this ceremony and place his wife's name in our atrium. Thank you. Now his granddaughter, Hannah Mason, will be performing a solo on her violin in her grandmother's honor. It is entitled Buddha Waltz. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'd like to share a blessing that my children say each day prior to lunch. It goes like this: blessings on the blossoms, blessings on the roots, blessings on the leaves and stems, blessings on the fruit, blessings on our meal and on everyone here and dear. Thank you so much for coming today.